back here to Myth Archives. This is me. I'm Nine, the creator. Obviously, the guy putting it down around here. And I wanted to get back into, the breakdown of the Wheel of Time, right? I've been kind of slowly going through some of the characters, some of the places, and the entities that you need to really understand this series. Now, I'm coming in this as someone digging into the series now. And I was familiar with the series a few years back, kind of touched on it a little bit, but I decided to go back and really do a deep dive on the series, complete with doing the books as well, right? So in addition to watching the series, I'm also doing the books. I do the books in audio form because that's what it is around here, right? I got a lot of things going. I need my hands free. And so let's get back into it. So I wanted to talk about this one and just kind of get into the Green Ajahs first, right? And I didn't realize that the Green Ajahs, hang on here. The Green Ajahs
exists for one
are my favorite of the Ajahs, right? And I'm going to get into why, but you got to understand all these various factions, because even on the show, it's coming at you fast. You're not thinking, okay, she's got on green, this means this, or they don't tell you the outline, the deep, all the stuff behind which each of the Ajahs actually represents and what they actually mean. So, talking about the Green Ajah, I got a little bit of material for us to help us through it. And also, these are the military squad. This is what I get out of the Green Ajahs.
Purpose: war. Where other Ajahs debate, archive, manipulate, or withdraw, the Greens prepare to fight.
Yeah.
They train for it. They live for it. They expect it. They're the Ajah that never believed the last battle was theoretical.
Yeah, so this is the military arm, and we see them obviously very different than the other Ajahs. And I'll talk about some of the differences between them. But that's most important thing. I don't know anybody at the tower who really is all working together. That actually doesn't exist for them. Just trying to monitor my other stream here. So that's kind of the weird thing. But this is the military part, and they can get down. And I saw one of the Green Ajahs in one of the episodes of in one of the last episodes of season 3. I think it was the 7th episode with this lady here. And she gets down, and I didn't even understand it. And they roll very differently because at the core of them, how they go about it is fundamentally different. Their goals are different from everybody else, and that's the most important thing to understand about any of these various groups of Ajahs.
Greens specialize in combat channeling, battlefield coordination, and sustained warfare. They are the most physically prepared of the Ajahs, and the most psychologically conditioned for prolonged violence.
Yeah, I mean, what I saw, this woman right here, man, she really showed her power in some pretty amazing ways. No spoiler alerts, whatever. If you haven't watched it, go watch it right now, right? It's right there for you to go see. You could be watching it right now, but stay here and you'll learn this from me, right? But there's a scene in, I think it's season 3, it's got to be the 6th episode, where, man, this chick goes through it, and she's so physically tough. And then you get to see this interaction on how the other Ajahs kind of work together with her. How, if they were all this cohesive thing, that's the crazy part, man. If all these various Ajahs were a cohesive thing, they'd be a hella effective force. Because you got the warriors, you got the healers, you got some spies, right? But then you get you got some people who are high, archiving knowledge, so they should know everything. But these chicks, none of them work together, right? That's a split. I don't know of any of the Ajahs that work together, and the Green are no different.
They do not romanticize war. They simply accept it. Core traits of the Green Ajah. The Green Ajah is known as the Battle Ajah.
Very important.
They're the Ajah most likely to bond multiple orders.
Yeah, now that's the whole thing. So I'm seeing a couple of extremes. Obviously, we know the Blue Ajahs obviously roll with the water. We see land. That's his role attached to Morian, right? So we see that very clearly. And then you notice with the Red Ajahs, they don't mess with men at all. No, none of the Red Ajahs are bound to a warden in that way. And that tells you a lot about their core. That's coming out of their core mission. Their core mission is, when it comes to dudes, I don't mess with you, right? They don't mess with any dudes. Whereas these are, the Green are a lot more liberal on that line, where they may bond with one or even more wardens, because they're more about battle, they're more physically ready, and the wardens are a deal for that. So that's kind of important. We see that they don't really explain it in the show, but this is the reason behind that.
They maintained the highest level of combat readiness within the White Tower. They were the least surprised by the return of the Shadow. They are historically impatient with Tower politics. They view violence as necessary, not celebratory.
But she seems like she really embraced it when she was whooping in people's asses. I'm just going to say that. Like, her skill set was very impressive on the battle scene.
Active and prominent Green Ajah members, Alana Misvani. Alana Misvani is one of the most controversial Green sisters of the age.
Now, Alana, that's the lady that I've been showing using as my examples, and she's hardcore, and she does some stuff that are really over the line, but she's the most prominent of the Greens, right? So, like, you can go back and check her out. She is the most prominent of the Greens. So when we're talking about the Greens, this is who we're talking about.
She forcibly bonds Rand al'Thor without his consent, committing one of the most serious ethical violations in Tower history.
Yeah, now see, here's the thing about that bond, man. Like, it's a lot of, like, I'm telling you, man, if you're watching this show, go into it knowing that you can't trust anybody. Nobody can be trusted. I'm telling you, everybody's got a knife or some insidious plot to put that knife in your back. Like, that's how it gets down on this show. Okay, so when she makes this bond with Rand, the bond in itself, it's a psychological bond. It's so strong that to break it, sometimes individuals who were part of this bond go through psychological collapse. That's how deep the bond is. The bond isn't something that you just like, yeah, I'm gonna do it or whatever. It's not. The bond cannot be willy-nilly in any sense of that phrase. So for her to do that, for her to bond with him, yeah, that's a technical foul right there, man. That's a major T, man. In fact, man, that's a flagrant 2 right there. What she did in that regard, that's a flagrant 2. So that's kind of how they move. But they're always in battle mode. So for them, it's like, whatever, we got to do this. The battle's on right now, and you see that in her.
Her actions permanently alter discussions of bonding law and consent within the White Tower.
Yeah.
Alana represents the Green Ajah at its most dangerous, when urgency overrides restraint.
This is what being in battle mode does to them, right? Where we see others of the Ajah, they have time to sit around and they can politic about stuff, right? They can have a little side meet, they can do all that nonsense. The Green Ajahs are like, yeah, it's a war zone right now. So, they're prepared for war. They're ready for war. They're about war. So they're more about action. And you see their major splits come against some of the Ajahs that are more about let's debate it, right? Like the Whites or the Grays particularly.
She is brave. She is capable. She is emotionally volatile.
Okay, that's another major deviant. And I'm going to compare her right now to the Reds, right? When you see the Reds are almost emotionless. The Reds don't laugh. The Reds don't get mad. The Reds simmer. Like, the worst thing that you can have is a Red simmering at you, right? The Green, they're going to be upfront. And that's how they move. They're a lot more upfront. The Reds, they're going to be simmering at you and probably like slip a blade in your back at some point. The Greens, that's a warrior class. They're going to want to fight more than anything else. And so they're going to be a lot more open with their emotions.
Her tragedy is not malice. It is impatience. Morel Berengari. Morel Berengari is entrusted with Lon Mandragoran's bond after Moraine's presumed death. She is known for keeping warders alive who should have died, both physically and psychologically.
Now, that's what I was talking about right there. This is after... See, like, Morian, man, like, I love Morian because obviously she was the lead in, to the show from me, right? Obviously that character, and even the books. So there's always this, like, yeah, we put her up here, we listen to her, she's righteous and moral, except she ain't, right? Except she's not, right? Like, Morian, like, is wild. So what she does to Lan, she breaks that bond. And that's why, like, they should have died. Lan could have died by having that bond broken, like, mentally and psychologically. So that's how important that bond is. And through her and this whole, like, setup here, it gives us reason to turn to Morian and be like, yeah, why were you really doing that? You're really off the hook with that. So that's kind of where it is.
Morel specializes in sustaining broken warriors long enough for them to recover purpose. She embodies a quieter aspect of the Green Ajah, caretakers of soldiers, not just commanders.
That's an important thing because I don't see any of the rest of them ever really caring about any. None of the other Ajahs seem to care about anybody else, right? Outside of their own clique. So this says a lot more about them and their ability to relate to others and then be caregivers for others. Obviously, the healers, like we know the yellows are the healers, but green, yeah, okay.
Karuna Nashiman. Karuna Nashiman is tall, imposing, and openly contemptuous of weak authority. She is outspoken, confrontational, and deeply skeptical of tower leadership.
I couldn't find an image of her, but you'll recognize this character, and I probably have to rip it off the show at some point. But you know, they're very much in resistance to the politics that go on in the tower, and that's always very important because again, they're always more about action. Where within the tower, it almost seems like it operates to me like NATO, where you guys are going to endlessly sit here and debate something when it's really going down live, and at that point, that's where the other people take advantage. So she stays on point, she stays on top of it at all times,
particularly during Elida's reign. Kiruna represents the Green Ajah's resistance to internal decay. She trusts strength, not titles. Bara Harkin. Bara Harkin is often paired with Karuna Nashiman. She is more measured and diplomatic, but no less prepared for battle. Where Kiruna challenges authority directly, Bara applies pressure with patience.
Now, Bara, you see, these are a couple of characters, and I didn't have images for these, but how even within the green, the green are slowly being my favorites because how they pair up, right? They seem to be, outside of Alana, forcing this bond onto to Rand, they seem like they're probably the most trustworthy. Because as much as I love the Blues, you can't ever trust the Blues, right? You can't trust the Blues. You definitely can't trust a Red, right? We know you can't trust a Red. And, we know what the Blacks are. I guess you could trust them to be who they are.
She represents balance between force and restraint. Adelorna Bastine. Adelorna Bastine serves as Captain General of the Green Ajah during the last battle. She is a seasoned battlefield commander with decades of experience. Despite severe injury, she remains in command and continues to lead. Adelorna Bastine represents the Green Ajah at its best.
Power.
Disciplined, experienced, and unbreakable. Notable past and legendary Green Ajah members Catswain Maladrin. Catswain Maladrin was once Green Ajah, though she later operates effectively Ageless. She is one of the most feared Aes Sedai in recorded history.
Wow, that's power right there. I wouldn't have thought it would have been a green, but yeah, they could whoop ass, man. That would bring fear as well.
For centuries, she successfully hunted male channelers without losing control of them or herself. Catswain dominates through presence alone. She represents the Green Ajah's apex archetype, the veteran who has survived everything. Rashima Karamosa. Rashima Karamosa was a legendary Green general during the War of Power. She lost both warders in battle and continued fighting regardless. Her endurance became foundational to Green Ajah training doctrine. She represents sacrifice without surrender. Tetsuin. Tetsuin was a Green sister during the Trolloc Wars.
You can see how deep the lore is. They're talking about 2 or 3 paths. Ajahs, these Green Ajahs, they were not contemporary with one another. Each one of these was fighting at different wars at different times over this vast history here.
Specialized in large-scale battlefield channeling and defensive warfare. Her legacy shaped early Green Ajah doctrine. Hold the line, or die on it. Neverin. Neverin was a post-breaking Green tactician. She helped formalize modern Green combat doctrine, particularly coordination between Aes Sedai and warders. Psychological profile of the Green Ajah.
Oh yeah, this is going to be good.
The Green Ajah is driven by anticipatory trauma. They live every day as if war is inevitable, because historically, it always has been.
I mean, again, everyone is a reaction to the breaking of the world and how significant it was. And each one of these Ajahs, each set of Ajahs actually represents a different trauma reaction to that. None of it's healthy. None of it's healthy, and all of it's probably necessary. That's the problem with it. I can criticize every single one of them for going way too far and maybe not going far enough at the same time. I'm particularly aggrieved by the Reds, But when I really understand their point, they've seen a man destroy the world with this kind of power, so they're afraid of ever letting it. It is fear. It's fear that drives most of what they do. And even with the green, they're probably among the more stable of the groups of Ajahs, but at their core is a real fear. Like there's really fear kind of driving almost every sect. So none of it's ever done in like a healthy fashion. It's always out of this really irrational type of fear.
Their strengths include readiness, courage under pressure, loyalty to comrades, and decisive action. Their flaws include impatience, overreach, moral shortcuts, and emotional burnout. They're not reckless. They are exhausted from waiting.
Because they're always in this ready mode, right? You exist in. There's never a downtime. There's never a time when you're not worrying about this thing popping off today. Like historically, over all the years, that's what's kind of attracted them. Is they're all in that mode, which is an unhealthy mode to be in long term. And you do kind of see the effects because you'll burn out if the war isn't ready to happen right now. So you find yourself kind of wanting the war. But then dreading the war at the same time, if you're being in respect of what the war actually represents.
Unofficial Green Ajah maxim: if the world is ending, we will be the first to notice and the last to fall.
So that's the Green Ajahs right there, basically in a nutshell. The military branch of the whole the White Tower. These are the warriors of the White Tower. And personality-wise, you can see they're going to be a little more prone to get into their passions, contrary to the Reds, who are like no passion at all, and the Blues, who seem like they lie about everything. So this is kind of where they find that warrior balance at. Now, I got another one I wanted to talk to you guys about. Since we're on these Ajahs, let's talk about the Whites. And this is a big one here. The Whites are super important too.
The White Ajah pursues truth through logic, mathematics, and philosophy. Where other Ajahs debate morality.
So you see right off the bat, they pursue, let's say that one again, they pursue truth through logic and understanding, right?
The White Ajah pursues truth through logic, mathematics, and philosophy.
So right up there, they're outside. These are the first ones that I'm not seeing, or at least hearing, that your emotions are the primary driver.
Where other Ajahs debate morality, power, or duty, the White Ajah asks a simpler, colder question: can it be proven? They believe emotional attachment distorts perception.
I see more
to
butts.
them, disciplined reasoning is the only reliable path to truth. This belief gives them clarity, but it also makes them distant.
See, and you could see like the fundamental shift. I'm glad I came at this one, after talking about, the Greens. It's a kind of a great segue. Because again, the Greens were detached, like we talked about the Reds, right? The Reds being over here to like in the ice freezer. The Greens being a little more detached, but they do get personally passionate about stuff, right? Like obviously for battle lust and all that stuff. Whereas the Whites really, really are kind of stepping away in such a way that it makes them feel disassociated from everything else.
To outsiders, White Ajah sisters appear cold, detached, and even inhuman. To the White Ajah, this is simply the cost of seeing clearly. The foundation of the White Ajah rests on three principles. First, axiom over assumption. Any belief must be grounded in first principles that can be examined and defended. Second, emotion as noise. Feelings are acknowledged, but they are treated as variables that interfere with reasoning, not guides for it.
Yeah, that's weird. I kind of didn't expect them. I expected them to kind of be more in tune. But yeah, okay. So that's okay.
Third, truth is independent of comfort. A conclusion does not gain value because it is kind, familiar, or reassuring. The White Ajah does not deny that emotion exists. They deny that it deserves authority.
That's an important shift. So this is more controlled, whereas the Red just completely stepped away from emotions. Like they're far more detached. The White, and it's kind of funny that Red, you would think they'd be the most like rah. They're not, but the White are like the controlled emotional part of it. That's the odd. That's where they're different. I think they're morally, stronger than everyone else, but also like, because of that detachment, how do they really feel? How does any of this stuff really, really matter to them?
From an early stage of training, White sisters undergo intense mental discipline. They learn cognitive distance, the ability to observe situations as abstract systems rather than personal conflicts. They practice delayed judgment, often refusing to speak until a matter has been examined from multiple logical angles. This habit frustrates other Ajahs, especially in moments of crisis.
So I would think the Greens are really going to be, I would think definitely that puts them at odds with the Greens, right? Because you guys have to think and have facts. And the Greens a lot, I mean, yeah, the Greens are more about military. So I can see that. The Reds are also about really quick action. So yeah, you can see how all these factions show they never really should be able to work together, because it kind of doesn't make sense that they do.
Personal identity is also minimized. Many White sisters speak little of their past, seeing it as irrelevant data rather than defining truth. This discipline produces minds of remarkable clarity, but also creates deep social blind spots. When moving through the world, White Ajah sisters are deliberate and restrained. They walk slowly, often absorbed in internal calculation. They speak precisely, avoiding metaphor unless it serves a logical function.
That's funny because that, like the Blues kind of swim in I'm lying. Like they're told not to lie, but they manage to bend that truth.
In tense situations, they observe more than they interact, treating social dynamics as systems rather than relationships. During crises, they may appear indifferent, not because they lack concern, but because they are calculating outcomes. Internally, the White Ajah is less hierarchical than most. Influence flows through reason rather than rank. Debate circles replace rigid chains of command. Proof councils refine positions through written arguments that circulate internally. Silence is common and respected. Long pauses signal thought, not hesitation. Interruption is considered a form of intellectual aggression. Within the White Ajah, importance is not attached to celebrated individuals, but to recurring roles.
Yeah, these Ajahs here, every little bit I hear really reinforces how these are kind of unique among the Ajahs. The thing that they celebrate about themselves, the things that they hold important. So these Ajahs, man, are really, really on another level from the others. Far less emotional, but more restrained emotional, not kind of just cold, locked out emotion.
The logician specializes in formal systems, law, and precedent. The strategist applies probability and game theory to tower politics. The metaphysician studies the nature of the one power, causality, and time itself. The dissenter exists to challenge consensus from within, dismantling majority positions to test their strength. Names matter less than the ideas these sisters advance. Although politically quiet, the White Ajah shapes the tower's intellectual foundation.
Deservedly so. They're at the crux of it. Like, that's the brain right there.
Many interpretations of tower law originate from White Ajah treatises. Their logic is often used to justify decisions announced publicly by other Ajahs. They rarely seek leadership positions, but their conclusions influence nearly every major vote.
Right, as it should. So, that being, the White Ajahs, so we've gone through the Blues, the Reds, the Greens, and now the Whites, and we see a lot of differences just in general on how they all move. And, the fascinating part is that they haven't really destroyed each other yet, although they seem to always be, at their throats. The Blues are always on the outside. So when we see what's happening to Morian, that absolutely makes sense that the Blues tend to want to operate like that. That doesn't just happen to them. They get pushed out and kind of exiled, or not exiled. Yeah, well, she got exiled, right? That's the real talk about it. They get pushed out and kind of exiled, and then she's using that as a strength. You would think like, walking through, they accept she took all the shame, she took all the like, I'm sad, I'm gonna miss this place, like, and really, knowing what happens to her lover or Sue San later, it probably would have been important or helpful if she had been there, but. Who knows how that dynamic would have broken down? But we can consistently see what the differences are, amongst the various Ajahs, based on what their agendas are. And their agendas, if you all look at every single one of them, we can kind of pick who should be at war, who's going to be at odds. Morian was always seen as like this uncontrollable because that's how the blues move more than not. And we should have known that the reds would be the people who would kind of be engineering. And that's where it came from to really strike at them because they always pay attention. So among the Ajahs, definitely the green are kind of at the top in terms of being fun because they're the warrior, the battle, Ajahs. But the whites are clearly where like all the deep thought went down. Again, not a group of action, but a group of let's sit down and talk about it. And that gives us a lot of insight into how they actually maneuver. Never really seeking to be like in leadership or direct leadership roles themselves, but more comfortable sitting back. And so perhaps it means that their caring is more intense about like what they're focused on. But these are to me like the adults within the room. At least the most, what on paper, at least it looks like the most emotionally controlled. Whether they're going to be able to help stop anything that goes on with Rand, I have no idea. Because it seems like a lot of this breaks down. Like their whole thing is truth, order and all that stuff. But when it's breaking down and there's nothing but chaos around you, how do you then, sit down and have a debate about it? So I think that's some of the internal things that, the Ajahs have to kind of reconcile themselves with as well. Now, I also wanted to break down this oath rod. And man, this oath rod, this is a very, very important part of what the overall mythology is. I think it really gets right into it, particularly how it's used, what they use it for. Now, remember, each one of the Ajahs, they're all people, right? So each one of them came to this organization, came to the tower because they had aptitude. Now, I'm not sure how the selection of which Ajah, it would have to be like aligning with what you think culturally or in your personal life, because the swing is so staggering between what Ajah what you're going to be, and you're going to know that about yourself, especially early on, considering what the stakes are here. So let's get into what the oath rod represents.
The Oath Rod is a potent terangrial designed to magically bind Aes Sedai to the 3 oaths, compelling truthfulness, restraint in violence, and ethical use of the One Power.
Okay, all these things sound great, right? Everything it says, I'm going to bind you to taking these oaths seriously, because taking these oaths seriously is what we 100% specifically do. So all this sounds like it's nice right now, right? We're learning about this oath rod. It's an oath rod. What would you be worried about, right? There's nothing to be worried about, Nye, unless there is. So let's kind of keep going with this one here.
On the surface, it functions as the tower's ultimate moral safeguard, an arcane guarantee that those who wield immense power cannot abuse it. Yet this safeguard comes at a steep...
Now we're getting into it, right? It's a lock to make sure. It's a control mechanism, right? And I can't say, see, in this world, they can't err on the side of, give them a shot. Because last time you gave somebody a shot, the Dark came through and said, we cracking the world completely open, and did it. And now, because they're always in this, I'm building off the aftermath of this. Like literally, like there were whole continents and populations that just got wiped off the Earth, Earth got wiped off the planet in seconds after the breaking of the Earth. So everybody's reaction to it is 100% real. So I do give it that ting of like, yeah, I kind of get what you're talking about when they have to require these deep oaths, both. But let's get back into this oath, because this is where it gets a little bit more insidious on when you take this oath, when you lay hands upon the oath rod. This is actually what it means. So let's get into it here again.
An often unspoken price.
Yes.
Prolonged use of the oath rod dramatically shortens the lifespan of those sworn to it.
Okay. Prolonged usage of this oath shortens your life. It has a detrimental effect on the life of all the Ajahs who are swearing on this. So it's not just I'm going to make an oath and everything's cool. Like, it's a bonding thing that really will draw on your life energy.
Quietly draining years, sometimes decades from their lives.
Years or even decades from their lives. Years and decades from their lives, right? That's the oath. So when I talk about like this world, this real world, like even the heroes, like nobody is really, I don't know anybody who's a hero. Even the organization, they're not heroes. They don't operate like heroes in any way at all. If you're like, this is not, I'm so down that I'm going to take this oath and I'm riding and dying for you guys every single day because I love you. This is, I'm being coerced. This is, I'm being forced to do something I probably wouldn't do if I was making my own decisions. Which is why they get them in while they're young as well.
This cost reframes the 3 oaths not as voluntary acts of
Yeah.
honor, but as enforced obedience sustained through physical consequence.
It is forced obedience. I am forced to be obedient, and you're draining out my life force.
The oath rod does not cultivate virtue. It extracts compliance. Trust is replaced with magical coercion, and moral authority is outsourced to a relic rather than earned through.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Place your hands upon this, and now you got the right to go out into the world and help shape the world because of this, and you're already compromised.
Character. In this way, the tower's vaunted ethical high ground is revealed to rest on a foundation of compulsion. More unsettling still is the cultural normalization of this sacrifice.
Yeah, that is something that they got. Like, they don't even push back on it. This thing could take decades off of your life, definitely years off your life, and no one even talks about it. They've always accepted this as just a cost of doing business.
The loss of lifespan is rarely framed as a tragedy, but as a necessary burden, proof of devotion to the tower and its ideals. Those who question the rod's use risk being seen as untrustworthy.
See, what he said, though, like, is it worth, like, what you're doing? Let's go back to this real quick.
Of devotion to the tower and its ideals. Those who question the rod's use risk being seen as untrustworthy, reinforcing a system where obedience is equated with righteousness.
And that's where they get you socially, right? Socially, you want to go along. You don't want to be the one to say, yeah, I'm not giving up 10 years of my life for this, because then they all see you as not being down. And you're not, like, I would understand you don't want to die. You don't want to just give your life away like that.
The oath rod thus becomes more than a tool of discipline. It is a symbol of institutional control, exposing a paradox at the heart of the White Tower, a society dedicated to guiding the world through wisdom, yet unwilling to rely on trust alone to govern its own.
Yeah, it is shiesty that they kind of force him to do that, taking that oath. Like, otherwise you wouldn't do it. Otherwise you wouldn't be down for what we're saying and be willing to give your life for it. That's really what I get out of the oath rod. That if we were really actually super righteous people, we wouldn't need to be doing anything with this in the first place. But because we got to force you to do it, that kind of casts a lot overall, like, on the tower and the whole concept. And I don't know how good these guys actually are. Like, I really gotta delve into it a whole lot more to see if I actually think that, any of the Ajahs, anything in the tower is actually a good thing. I don't know that. I don't know. You got some man haters. You got some just ruthless hoods. You got the dark ones, all running through. This is all a big mix, and I'm just trying to work my way through it. But so that's it for today. I just wanted to talk about these 2 entities right here. As always, you got some more info, drop it in the comment section. I got some more. I'll probably be back on talking about Wheel of Time. What's today's Wednesday? So maybe like Friday or something like that. I'll be back. In the meantime, I'll put up all the study materials on the site, so you go check them out. Absolutely like and subscribe, and then I'll be back later doing some mythology reading for the late night. So check back in, man. I'm right here waiting for you guys. Let's get the TikTok audience out of here first. Okay, there we go. Whew, now I'm just YouTube where I always like to be, so I can talk more freely. All right, YouTube. So thanks for stopping in. I'll be back later. You guys know where to find me.